The music had a little bit of a delay there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, JV Wans and Dogon SS, we are back once again for another edition of the Conscious Approach channel on YouTube. Thank you very much for tuning in as the boy Dogon shouts out his alma mater, Florida A&M University. Big ups to them. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, man. JV Wans Dogon SS. Today is August the 12th. Hope everybody out there is having a great week. And if you have not had a great week so far, we sincerely hope that your week improves. Before we get into the commentary for tonight's episode, as always, I want to say, for anybody who has not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do your boys a big old solid. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button so that you can get the notification whenever any content is published to the channel. And to everyone who has already subscribed to the channel, just know that we don't take for granted the value of your digital currency. I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I do not subscribe to a quarter of the stuff that I watch on YouTube. So we understand the effort that it takes to actually click the subscribe button. It is indicative of the fact that you believe that you are getting some value out of whatever the content is. And if you believe that you are getting some value, then we are doing our jobs. So thank you very much for that. I also want to say that we are now available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music for anyone who is wanting to check us out audio style, don't want to watch the YouTube videos, or otherwise you're not in position to watch the YouTube video. You can always subscribe to us on those areas so that you can get the content, hit in your headphones and whatnot. We're just trying to be available any and all places possible. So as we continue to kick this logical content, we want to be as ubiquitous as possible because we do foresee bigger things on the horizon for the Conscious Approach channel, whether you love or hate what we have to say or do. It will continue to expand as such because that is how the internet tends to work. The internet tends to be forgiving in that way. It'll reward the people who play the long game and just stay consistent and are earnest in what it is that they're trying to do. So with that out the way, we'll go ahead and get things kicked off, man. Juicy things percolating this week. So we're going to kick things off with an individual who is at this point 100% a friend of the channel. Not necessarily a fan of the music per se, but we have mentioned this guy on the channel enough times that he is certainly a friend of the channel. Fat Joe is a friend of the channel.
Absolutely.
And Fat Joe has a podcast with someone who needs to be more of the friend of the channel, but hasn't gotten there yet. But I am a fan of his nonetheless, Jadakiss. What they call their show, Joe and Jada, I think is the name of their show.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so they talk about a litany of topics in the music world and beyond on their show. And they recently got into talking about the BET Hip Hop Awards. So I wasn't aware of this, but apparently the BET Hip Hop Awards, along with the Soul Train Awards, have been suspended by BET. And Fat Joe is unmuting to give his take as to what's going on with that situation, claiming that it's a form of gentrification. Fat Joe believes that the suspension Fat Joe believes that the suspension of the BET Awards, the BET Hip Hop Awards, and the Soul Train Awards is a form of gentrification. So I will, of course, or rather we will, of course, allow the man to speak for himself. So we are going to provide a little context here. So this says Fat Joe claims gentrification is responsible for BET Awards cuts. BET recently broke many fans' hearts by announcing that they suspended their Hip Hop and Soul Train Awards, and Fat Joe is not happy. On his Joe and Jada podcast, alongside fellow rap veteran Jadakiss, he explained why this move is a result of gentrification and underfunding in his view. So I'm not going to read the quote because we're going to play a little clip here. Let's see. So it looks like everything here is quotes. So amid Fat Joe and Jadakiss's other hot takes, This resonates particularly strongly with all different corners of hip hop and black culture. While BET said they will look for future ways to innovate with their content and endeavors, fans still don't know if this would keep those award spirits alive. We will see if these accusations get a debunk or confirmation. So here's Fat Joe on Joe and Jada talking about his belief that the suspension of the BET Hip Hop Awards and Soul Train Awards is the result of gentrification.
ET, this is a form of gentrification, what's going on right now. Right. So I don't know if y'all really want to ask me about this shit right here, right? So BET came up as a community station for black people, right? The urban culture. And our man, what is Bob Johnson, took the check. He sold it, first black billionaire, whatever the case may be. He sold it. He sold it to Viacom and Paramount, MTV and them, VH1 and them. Little by little over the years, quietly, they've been firing a lot of people behind the scenes in BET, and everybody who has something to say, they've been firing them and this and this and that. And I know because I've been working on the BET Hip Hop Awards for 3 years. Shit was like the budget, not for me, but the budget just kept getting chopped and chopped and chopped. And last year, I debuted my single with Khaled in the VMAs, and Katy Perry's still flying through the air in the VMAs. They still blowing out of the cannons. They still flying in the air. They still got all the tricks. They still got the budgets. They got the shit, you know. And so I think in the entertainment world, I don't think I know this was like a form of gentrification. They kept underfunding them, and you ain't got no money to be creative. That's why you was watching the Ratchet Awards and all that. They ain't had no bread.
All right, so those are Fat Joe's thoughts on that. Um, that's not actually an accurate analogy because that's kind of not really what gentrification is. But I didn't know if you were going to cover that or not. But the floor is yours. Do you concur with Fat Joe that the suspension of the BET Hip Hop Awards as well as the Soul Train Awards, both BET entities, is a form of gentrification?
Of course not. I think them being suspended is because they are both trash. Um, the BET Awards. I'm gonna stick with BET. So the BET Awards,
Now,
that needs to be. I
just
know,
to
I
clear,
know, I know, I
okay,
know. The
yeah.
BET Awards need to be suspended. That needs to be suspended. That's a mess. So the Hip Hop Awards, I mean, it really doesn't stand a chance. That too has been garbage over the years. Hip hop in itself isn't really a genre where we want to see these guys get up there and accept these awards. These new dudes, whatever's going on right now, like it's all shard against the wall. And I don't want to see somebody go up there wearing a skirt, um, accepting the latest award for, the best drip, because that's all they're going to be doing. It's not about bars anymore. It's not about albums. It's not about concepts. Hell, it's not even about music videos. So the whole hip hop genre, in and of itself, has, in my opinion, caused the lack of interest from fans. Even if it was defunded and it wasn't as much going into the explosions, I don't watch hip hop for explosions and shiny suits. That's what Diddy did. Diddy did shiny suits, explosions, and I don't know if you remember that TV show where they talked about the most expensive music videos, and you'll see how much money they spending on one pyrotechnic explosion. And it's like, why would you spend $200,000 on on an explosion that lasted all of 3 seconds in a music video. But that's what they were doing back in the day. And people could say the showmanship and stuff like that is what really sold it. No, everybody just watched music videos back then. So today, I'll still see videos that are conceptually interesting, based on how the guy edited it, and those are shot with iPhones. So you really don't really need a big budget in order to get the people captivated. So all that the stuff to say is that no, just over the years, the product of hip hop in and of itself, has become suspended. BET, the franchise, has also become suspended. Who actually watches BET still? I know there's people out there that still do, but come on, we got to do better. At some point, people do have to realize that this is black exploitation television, and it has nothing to do with excellence or actual entertainment. So actually, it's a little bit surprising that they would suspend the awards, because that's their best time to have a whole jigaboo session on stage, and it be sanctioned. But hey, man, teach their own. Money's getting tight, man, and so they didn't want to waste the money on having an award show. I figure agendas always override money, but in this case, they said no. I guess work here is done. I don't think they really need to, perpetrate any more agendas towards the people. I think they're doing it on their own at this point. So, what are your thoughts, man, on Fat Joe saying that BET has become gentrified? That's why there's no more hip hop awards. What are your thoughts, man?
No, I don't agree with him. Gentrification insinuates that there's an agenda against hip hop, and that was the source of the defunding. I don't believe that's the case. I think that the BET Hip Hop Awards and the Soul Train Awards are the result of corporate cuts, corporate budget cuts, things that tend to happen when the owner, when the headmaster has determined that the juice is no longer the squeeze. BET was sold by Bob Johnson in 2001. The BET Hip Hop Awards, the first year of that was 2006. It's been ratchet ever since 2006. It was never not ratchet. I think it's a bit misleading for Fat Joe to suggest that it is the result of underfunding and budget cuts as to why the show eventually devolved into a form of ratchetness. That program has been ratchet since its initial inception.
Yes.
And what you have to remember is you're dealing with corporate enterprises here. And when you're dealing with corporate enterprises, it doesn't matter what your perceived cultural relevance is. If the corporate headmaster, if the entity which owns you, because you are owned, has determined that the juice is no longer worth the squeeze, they are going to figure out ways to minimize the impact of that juice no longer being worth the squeeze. You know, the corporate music industry, in my opinion, is no different than professional sports in this manner. Um, in professional sports, a player has to be an elite, high performing producer in order for the organization or the franchise or the league to determine that an arrest here or an assault charge there is worth keeping that player around.
Mhm.
If you're a player who's not producing and you're a marginal player at best, you're not a superstar, you don't necessarily bring in the ratings. If you're a player on that team and you're not averaging 30 a game and you're not a force multiplier, giving that team a chance to legitimately compete, you can't run around out here getting arrested and showing up late and getting bammed up on assault charges. They're going to cut your ass, or they're going to figure out a way to void your contract. They're going to figure out a way to minimize the detrimental impact that you are contributing towards them because you're not good enough to justify keeping you around. They've
Mhm.
determined that the juice is not worth the squeeze. And so I feel like with the BET Hip Hop Awards, for example, in my opinion, as I said, that award show in particular, in my opinion, has been rather ratchet since its inception. Since 2006, I believe that show has been cringeworthy to watch, only because I know that they are trying to appeal to a larger corporate mainstream audience. And I can only imagine what the larger mainstream corporate audience is saying when they are actually being sold on the idea that they should devote time to sit down and watch the BET Hip Hop Awards. The thought in my mind that that's their goal made me cringe whenever I watched it, because I ceased watching it many, many years ago. When
Mhm.
I did watch it, I cringed because I knew who they were trying to appeal to, and I know the individuals to whom they are trying to appeal are saying a certain thing about that program that is not very positive. Let's put it that way. So, given that, that audience is not going to be present. I don't think you are going to achieve the sort of mainstream watching appeal that you're looking for. Thus, all those other things are going to take place. Ratings are going to decline. Nobody's really going to watch. People are going to drag it on the internet and social media, clown it for the um, tap dancing, jigabooing fiesta that it is. And as a result, the juice is no longer going to be worth the squeeze. When the juice is not worth the squeeze, your owner is going to figure out ways to minimize the collateral damage associated with you. And in this instance, they decided to just suspend it until they can figure out a better way to present it as a product, which good luck with that. I don't see how you can make that happen. So to me, this is corporate much ado about nothing as far as I'm concerned. The product itself, much like an underperforming professional athlete, wasn't enough to justify said athlete getting arrested and catching speeding tickets and assault charges.
Mhm.
Now, was the BET Hip Hop Awards doing the equivalent of getting arrested and assault charges? Perhaps not necessarily. That's debatable. But the point remains, in the eyes of those who owned it and who made those corporate decisions, those were the kind of cuts that they felt needed to be made. If you want to be able to sidestep something like that, don't sell yourself out corporately. But the ship sold on that over 20 years ago.
Mhm.
The owner of BET sold this thing to a larger corporate entity, Viacom and all of that kind of stuff. When you do that, you are subjecting yourself to the mercy of corporate machinations.
Mhm.
And there's nothing you can do about that. Now, the best thing that you can do to try to ward off these corporate machinations is to present yourselves with a little more professionalism and decorum. Now, if had the BET Hip Hop Awards been a little less street themed and ratchet, could it have survived this? Maybe. I think that that's a conversation worth having. But they didn't do that because they wanted to embrace all of those various anecdotes and themes, because they believe that that is what makes them authentically hip hop. And they wanted to give that imagery to a mainstream audience. But it didn't work, as evidenced by the fact that they're now getting slashed. So maybe if you get another crack at it, you might want to institute a little more decorum into what it is that you do. But I hear all of the hip hop defenders out there are probably going to say, but that ain't hip hop. Well, neither is corporate, but you can't have both. You're not going to be authentically street oriented hip hop and all of this kind of stuff and do the corporate thing. You can't do both those things simultaneously. So you're going to have to pick one. And last time I checked, Viacom isn't looking to sell BET and all of its various holdings to some private independent buyer. That's not going to happen
Mhm.
unless I'm missing something. So long as it stays within that corporate umbrella, that corporate apparatus, you're beholden to corporate rules. So maybe hip hop shouldn't have sold itself out for being corporate, but the ship sold on that many, many, many years ago. And if you're gonna have to, and if you're gonna play that game, maybe you should try to dial down some of the ratchetness, because otherwise, they're going to determine that you're not worth the squeeze, and they're going to defund you, and that's what I think happened.
Well, they've merged the ratchetness over to the regular BET Awards. I mean, that's turned into a thought pocket popping session. And they'll have a moment where they'll do um they'll remember somebody who passed away, and they'll have somebody coming out there singing or doing something. So those are always heartwarming. But the rest of it is just booty shaking ratchetness. And the current state of music in the Black community that BET would be covering, it's nothing but ratchetness. All the women rappers are ratchet. The ones that they hold up, the ones
Right.
that are in
Right.
attendance.
The ones that are the champions for the music. Yeah.
Yeah, the ones that are going to be getting awards. Hell, this past year, or this year, or however you want to say it, they gave Glorilla, all right, a gospel award for the best gospel song. And it's like, and there was actual gospel songs on the list, but you know how rappers, they'll put that one song in there with their faith on the album. The rest of her album's doing regular Glorilla stuff. And she got an award for best gospel song. That's how BET do things. That is them. Their job and their duty is to tell you that is Black excellence.
Yeah. Right.
They're doing exactly what they're there to do. And then what they realize is like, hey man, look, this regular award show is the hip hop awards. Why are we doing both of these? It's not like we're getting ratings either one. So let's just cut this one over here, the one that people really don't watch. Let's just cut this one over here. They're not even going to miss it. We're not. I don't even know who the target demographic for that stuff is. It must have been cool for Fat Joe and all the other, industry guys that it was just another party and another situation to go to, something else to get fresh for, I guess. But the average everyday person that got bills to pay, they ain't got time to be sitting around watching no hip hop awards. We gonna give awards to NBA YoungBoy? You know what I'm saying? For the best Massa album. Now, that boy named his album Massa, of all things. Trying to talk about slime. That ain't slime, bro. And I've seen people actually making think pieces about that, trying to flip it and make it seem like he's talking about how he feels like a slave. No, he's not. He's calling Big Trump Daddy Massa. And listen, man, this is the state of hip hop, air quote hip hop right now. All right, this sludge. I did myself a favor this past week, and I watched that Ice Cube movie, the one that everybody's ragging on. If you want a good laugh, bro, I suggest you watch it. But as I'm sitting there watching it, it made me uncomfortable in a number of ways. I didn't care for some of the undertones going out throughout that movie. And I said, you know what? I don't know why I keep getting Ice Cube a pass. I guess he plays both sides of the street well. But he was a part of gangster rap, and I hate gangster rap. I hate what it did to our people. And he was on the front lines pushing that foolishness. And I say that to say is that what hip hop was becoming, it was becoming something that some may say is mentally liberating, like an African American form, using African American, but an African American form of reggae. It's a rhythm and blues type of situation where we were just doing things differently. But the premise behind it was for mental elevation and try to get out of these mental shackles that we're in. And then here comes corporatized gangster rap and pushing it to the people. And so what ended up happening is that the BET Awards is a reflection of a crystallized form of that introduction of gangster rap, pretty much. Because what we've talked about R&B not being R&B anymore is basically rap. So everything has degenerated into this form of crack that has decimated the community. So I wouldn't be, me personally, even if this may be some part of some corporate stuff, I'm actually quite ecstatic about this, quite jovial, that this is gone. They need to get rid of BET as a whole. Get rid of it. So, so no, I don't care what Fat Joe's talking about here. Of course, he misses the hip hop awards. It's just something where he can still try to be relevant, I guess. But nah, man, good riddance. I hope it doesn't come back, and I hope they get rid of the other ratchet ass award show. Last thing I'll say is that this year's Essence Fest was a debacle. People want to say because it was, they merged with Target, or it was Target was sponsored. I'm not getting into that. People ain't that hard pressed on boycotting. It just the previous year was a twerk fest. And Essence Fest used to be like a classy kind of upscale kind of thing, but they turned that into Sukihana popping pockets and Sexy Red popping pockets. And so everything has degenerated into this mess. And so to the point where we were talking about the NAACP giving P Valley awards. So if all of these award shows are going to be awarding ratchetness, I want no parts of it. So all of those shows, they can kick rocks. I think at this point, our people should be aware that these corporate entities who run these things are giving us this product for us to become whatever the hell they're pushing towards us. So the Sukihanas and the Sexy Reds and the P Valleys. So if they don't decide to do that, that's good for us. We dodged the bullet.
Yeah.
So I don't care what Fat Joe's talking about.
Unfortunately, bro, I think the majority of us are on the other side of the fence. And I think the majority of us believe that, you know,
They're taking
BET
stuff away from
programming
us.
and no, they well in part, yeah, but I think the majority of us believe that BET and by extension the BET Hip Hop Awards and the Soul Trade Awards are, to quote 50 Cent, an accurate representation of our
Yeah,
culture.
no.
And so I think a lot of us feel slighted because we feel as though this is a part of our culture being taken away from us. That's what I think most people's reaction to this is.
Nah,
And I, of course, vehemently disagree with that. I agree with you. My issue with this stuff has always been the lack of balance. I think there's an imbalance in terms of the representation and the mainstreaming of the content, but I also believe that that's intentional for all the reasons that you put forth. If there was more balance, then I would agree that this is somewhat of a slight, because I would think that you are taking away all aspects of the rich tapestry of our culture, not just this one degenerative aspect of it.
correct.
Just to add some color to what you said there, so I actually looked this up because I remembered it in real time, but I couldn't remember all of the channels that it was being shown on. So the BET awards, so not the BET Hip Hop Awards, but the BET Awards itself, are when that comes on, it's broadcast not just on BET, but it's also simultaneously broadcasted on MTV, MTV2, VH1, Logo, TV Land, uh, and CMT, which is the Country Music Television Channel.
Damn.
Now, because that's the corporate aspect of it, because all those channels are owned by Viacom. So here's the thing with this, and this is what drives my point. I don't know very many people from our community who watch CMT, TV Land, well, maybe VH1 because of the ratchet reality shows, but CMT, TV Land, and Logo. So when you're talking about broadcasting your stuff on on TV Land, Logo, and CMTV, that tells me that you are trying to appeal to a certain kind of mass audience. And when it doesn't hit because the content is of a certain variety, you're going to suffer the corporate ramifications of that, which oftentimes results in marginalization. So it's very clear to me that this, to use the term that you invoked, the black, our art, black excellence, as showcased through rap and hip hop, is trying to be disseminated not just to us, but to everybody else. And how that plays out is something that results in what, in my opinion, is an ineffective strategy. And I think that that's very conclusive because otherwise, why cut it? Why get rid of it? Why get rid of it? So it's easy to play the blame game and say they're defunding this and slashing budgets. To me, it's a larger corporate operation at work here. And to me, it's working as intended, which is if it doesn't drive the point home or make the money or make the ratings, they're going to get rid of it. The question is, why is it having that effect? Why is it having that impact? And I think that it's having that impact because you are trying to sell a certain kind of art as a mainstream form of art that represents an entire group of people. And I
Mhm.
just don't think that that washes with everybody, in my
Mhm.
opinion. And so I think when that doesn't wash with everybody, you're going to see the result of that play out, which is people getting rid of stuff. Because at the end of the day, if the juice isn't worth the squeeze, they're not going to be able to justify keeping you around. They're going to void your contract. They're going to cut you. They're going to get rid of you. The same way they do a marginal NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball player, National Hockey League player, if he's good but not good enough to justify that person always getting arrested. It's the
Mhm.
same thing working out here. So, everybody else will say that this is just people being anti black, anti rap, anti hip hop. But to me, if rap was actually being rap and if hip hop was actually being hip hop, none of this would be happening. But it ceased to be that way a long time ago. And so you're going to continue to see this stuff getting defunded. And that to me isn't gentrification. That's just your corporate dollars at work.
Yep. And Dave Chappelle said this, man, when he tried to go to Disney World with his kids, and here comes Mickey Mouse talking about, ho ho ho, oh, Rick James, bitch. You know what I'm saying? And it's because of who he portrayed on TV, how people treated him in real life. And when you talk about our type of programming being broadcast on country music, Logo, which I've never heard of, VH1, all these other platforms and stuff like this, and then the first thing that they see is Sexy Red and Suki Hana busting it wide open on stage. Here comes Meg the Stallion, y'all. Let's not forget her. Oh, and then Lotto and all the rest of the whatevers. Then, now we got the male rappers, but they're talking about ops and all this other stuff, and they're talking about drill this and whatever that. And then you see the representation of people that are demonstrated, and for whatever reason they're held at such a high esteem that we're giving these people awards for behaving this way. So at this point, these are now the de facto leaders of our
Yeah.
community.
Yes. Yeah.
And then, so from people on the outside looking in, go, well, of course. I mean, Suki Hana she should be like, I mean, she's the vice president of black people, is she not? I see her everywhere. Meg Thee Stallion, And so then when I try to go somewhere, of course they're gonna click their alarm. They think I'm one of those op guys that they saw on TV. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Well, you're not for the culture. That's
yeah,
that's what. Yeah. That's what
yeah.
it is.
So it's just like, so what do y'all want, people? The people that's out here defending BET, people that don't want to see it eradicated. You know what I'm saying? Those people. What do y'all want? So y'all can't, on one hand, when you're in real life encountering real life racism, because of the images that are portrayed to you on BET and other similar platforms. So, but you want to sit here and uphold power, empire, all these other goofy shows and stuff like that portray you in the same light over and over and over again. No wonder they want to act funny with you when they stop you at the red light. So my whole thing is something has to give. And it's all this garbage programming. So Fat Joe, you can kick rocks and get suspended with the rest of this crap. Got time for your nonsense. I can't believe him, man.
Yeah. I'm looking at that category. It's the Dr. Bobby Jones Best Gospel / Inspirational Award. And there was so Pastor Mike Jr., I'm assuming he's a gospel artist. Yolanda Adams, of course, featuring Sir the Baptist and Donald Lawrence.
Sir the Baptist. You didn't give Sir the Baptist the award.
Right. Maverick City Music, Jordan Sparks, Chandler Moore, Anthony Garguilla, Tamala Mann, and the winner of the award was Glorilla.
Glorilla.
So that is
Over
hilarious.
Yolanda Adams.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Come on, man. Let's not. Let's come on. Stop.
And the thing about it is, you can't really say BET get it together because they're a corporate entity and they're owned.
Exactly.
So they're at the whims of their corporate, owner. The person who runs the house, massa, literally, and whatever they say goes because you've been sold this thing out. So good luck getting them to figure it out. But they'll pick on the low hanging fruit and talk about how this is an agenda against hip hop. But to that end, I would say, what is hip hop? What is the agenda against? Explain to me what hip hop is anymore.
And I would say BET in and of itself is an agenda against hip hop. So Kid Rock, man, unbelievable.